Buddy. Whoa. I decided to take you guys along on another horse sale trip. The weather was really nasty. It rained pretty hard the whole entire drive there. When I came into town, there was just these big dark clouds over the city, and I was hoping that it would stay clear enough for me to go check out some horses. So if you haven't seen my last video, this horse sale is a little bit different than most auctions. The horses are sold loose, so when they go through the auction ring, no information is read about them. You have maybe 30 seconds to decide if you want to bid on a horse. I live a few hours away, so I always come the day before and check out what horses are going to be sold the next day. We've been getting a ton of rain, and as you can see, the pen is a little bit muddy. It's not too bad. I did bring my muck boots, so it's not really a big deal. And it only took me a minute to find a horse that I was possibly interested in. This tall bay mare was just kind of hanging by herself over by the hay. I used to ride a lot of thoroughbreds off the track, and she just kind of looked like a thoroughbred to me, so I decided to check her lip for a tattoo, and she did have one. I snapped a few pictures of her tattoo before she got a little bit upset with me, and I'll check them later to see if I can find out who she is. I'm looking for a very particular kind of horse when I go to this sale. I'm really trying to find the ones that have the highest risk of getting sent into the slaughter pipeline. So horses that don't have very much training, maybe they need some rehab from a medical condition. This guy was super friendly. A lot of the horses this sale were super friendly. After cruising around for a little while longer, I did see a horse that I was thinking might be what I'm looking for. This horse stood out to me. He looked like he maybe had some metabolic condition going on. A horse like him really is perfect for a beginner. They're very calm and docile. They've seen a lot of the world. This guy just seems super sweet. He didn't really have any soundness issues going on that I could see, so I wanted to take a look in his mouth and see what his teeth looked like. I'm also going to check for any odors that might be coming out of his mouth that are indicative of some dental problems he may have. When I budget for a new horse from an auction like this, I always factor in regular dental care because a lot of them will need it. If they need things that are above and beyond, I just need to make sure that I can afford to take care of that for them before I buy them. I usually come to this sale every month, so when there's a horse that I recognize, it always kind of bums me out. This mule was sold last month. He sold for $1,900, so I'll be interested to see what he sells for tomorrow. He seems like the kind of mule that's a little bit tricky to get along with. He seemed a little flighty and reactive, so hopefully someone will buy him tomorrow that will get along with him. I got a lot of comments on my last video about how it was horrible that all these horses were standing in one pen. A lot of horses in Montana spend the night out on giant pastures. They get brought in during the day into a dry lot like this, and then they have a real job. So this is a normal way to keep them out here. Buddy? Whoa. The weather was starting to get nasty again, and I had only looked at about 100 horses. I think there was maybe 300 or 400 at the sale that I needed to go through, so I kept chugging along, trying to find horses that met my criteria. This little bay mare really caught my eye. I love cow horses. They're my favorite kind of horse to buy from the sale, and she was just cute as a button, so I decided to check her out. And unfortunately, the first thing I saw was that she was foundered. I wanted to see if I could tell how badly and if it was something that I could fix in a reasonable amount of time. She wasn't super lame, so that was good. I did buy a horse last year that was foundered, and I'm just now finishing up his rehab, so it's been a year, so it's a big time commitment. She is a really good looking horse. She is selling grade, which surprises me. This horse looks like she had papers at one time. I'm really not looking for a long-term project at this sale. I'd like to get one that maybe has a rehab time closer to 3 or maybe 6 months. Going to a sale like this can be really hard, especially if you know you can help the horses, but you are trying to be realistic about the time and financial commitment that they're going to take. Without x-rays to confirm the amount of rotation that this mare has in her feet, I can't really determine how bad or how long her rehab is going to be. I'm still going to put her on my list, but She would have to be somewhere around the $500 mark tomorrow for me to feel okay investing in her with enough money left over to give her the care that she needs. One of the other comments that I got on my last video was how people seem to be dumping a lot of horses at this particular sale. I really try to have an open mind about what owners are going through and why they have to sell their horses. This group of horses is a perfect example. These horses are extremely well bred and very well taken care of, but unforeseeable circumstances can change your life in an instant. The breeder of these horses had a catastrophic accident in their family and they needed to focus on getting everybody healthy, so the horses' papers were unfortunately not kept up to date. So they are selling gray today. I decided to look very briefly at these, even though I know they're going to sell for several $1,000s a piece. This gray one was my favorite, and then this really dark bay one I really liked too, but I think they will probably sell for a lot of money. This little yearling was super cute. This group of horses was pre-advertised, so I have a feeling that a lot of private buyers are going to show up to bid on them tomorrow. At this sale, they keep the stallions in a separate part of the sale yard, so I'm going to walk over and see how many there are. It looks like there's 4 or 5 already. I think this gray one right here was registered, so he might sell for a decent amount of money. I'm very careful when I buy studs now. I do make sure that they have both of their testicles down. If you've watched any of my other videos and seen Stewie, he was actually a crypt orchid when I bought him. His previous owners had gelded him and just taken one testicle and left one, so that was very expensive to fix. I wanted to be able to put this guy on my list, but I don't know if it was because it was cold or he really didn't have 2 testicles, but I could only see one, so I had to pass on him. These 2 were super cute. I don't know why this girl was drinking out of this disgusting puddle when she had fresh water. Usually this time of year they have quite a few pairs go through each sale, but I only saw this one and one other, so I have a feeling they're going to sell for way more than they're worth just because they're the only ones. They were both super friendly, so if a private buyer comes and sees them, it would be a good one if they just wanted a horse to hang out and love on. This is the other pair, and they were both pretty feral, so I don't think they're going to sell for as much money. She was pretty stressed, so I didn't get too close to her. She really didn't want me next to her baby. I'm almost back to the beginning of the sale barn, and I have to hit up the pen with all of the cute little minis in it. This guy was so cute. There were a lot of cute little ponies. This mama had her little baby here, which I think they're gonna sell them separate. She looked like she was over him. He was using this little yearling as a shield from the rain. He did not seem to mind being by himself, so I think he's been weaned for quite a while. There was one more pen of registered horses that were recently dropped off that I'm gonna go check out. I did just see a trader hop off one horse that did not look like she was broke to ride, but she was gorgeous. Here she is. She has a very similar build to that horse that's foundered, but this one is registered and her feet look great. The sale office is not open right now, so I can't see how she's bred, and that will be a big factor in how much she brings. Because I saw the traders test her out and she didn't seem very broke, she might be in my price range, so I'm going to put her at the top of my list. It started raining again pretty hard, and it's really hard to evaluate the horses when they're just trying to stay out of the elements, so I just kind of walked behind them and wrote down a few that I thought I might want to check out in the morning when the weather was better, hopefully. Right when I was about to leave, I noticed there was a semi that pulled up and they dropped off a ton of horses. These horses are all from a lease company. If you've ever taken a trail ride in Yellowstone or Glacier, these horses may have been the ones that carried you. They had just been dropped off, so I didn't want to look at them too much because they're kind of just stretching their legs from the trailer ride. I took down the numbers of a few that I wanted to look at in the morning when the weather was nicer. I got to the sale barn at about 5:30 the next day and continued looking at horses. These were new ones that were dropped off that were still kind of settling down. I don't think they were handled at all. The rain from last night was insane. There was so much water everywhere, and it's hard for these pens to drain because the poop and the hay just clogs it up. There were a bunch of traders there testing out horses. Usually if a trader rides a horse and it steers around and goes and stops without too much of a fuss, it's gonna be more expensive than I'm willing to pay. The last horse that I had on my list to look at ended up having a bad stifle, and that is my least favorite thing to rehab because they're really tricky. He also had his tail done, so he probably was a reiner that just got ridden too hard and shown too much without any time off. The tail thing is one of my biggest pet peeves. I hate it when people do their horses' tails. I try to stay focused on helping the horses I can, but sometimes it's difficult when I run into a horse like that. It just really gets me down. There are a few really great rescues that come to this sale and buy horses that are in need of immediate help. When I'm back in the pens, if I see a horse I think needs help, I'll always call them first. Some of the things are just too much for me to handle on my own, but with their help, we can get the horses in a safer place. Trying to decide which horse on my list to buy is always tricky. This sale doesn't sell the horses in any order, so I never know which grade horse is coming up first. And it just so happens that the foundered mare I was interested in sold in the first couple horses of the sale. I could tell that a private buyer was bidding on her, so I felt okay letting her go for $700. At a lot of loose horse sales across the country, not very many private bidders show up. But as you can see, the stands are packed with people. It was actually standing room only at this sale. This was that sweet older metabolic horse. He sold for $850 to a private home, so I didn't bid on him. I got a lot of comments on the last video about how most of these horses will end up slaughtered, which is not true. A lot of these horses people will pay big money for because they know a good horse when they see one. This guy wasn't even the highest selling horse and he was grade. I actually kept track of all the prices today, and I'm going to make a video in the future about how many horses from these sales actually go to slaughter. This is that little 3 bell mule, and I could see the guy that was bidding on him, and he did look like a mule person. If you've ever met a mule guy, you know what they look like, so hopefully this guy will have an easier time with him than the last buyer. This is that thoroughbred with the lip tattoo. I sent a picture of it to a few of my friends and we could not figure out who she was, which was a bummer because that was a really good deal. These were the horses from that dispersal. The one I wanted sold for $4,000, of course. This cute little baby sold for $1,100. The other one I wanted sold for $2,600. So they did go to good private homes. There were a few bucking stock mares at this sale. This big black one was one of them. She sold for $850. They did have some horses at the sale that were lease horses that were retiring. These usually sell for more money than I'm wanting to spend. Whoever was bidding on this mare and foal pair must have knew them or really wanted them because they sold for $3,700 and that was like pretty high for what they actually were. It seemed like everybody at the sale wanted to get their hands on this cute little bugger. He sold for $1,400. This sale was a good one to come to if you wanted a young prospect. There was a few yearlings that were here that sold for a very reasonable price. Most of them I think went to private homes. And then the high seller for the sale was $10,000. It was a registered horse. A lot of the registered horses were going pretty high. I had to wait the entire sale to see this mare go through, and I am still a little annoyed that I did not bid on her. She sold for $950. I did see that a private bidder got her, so that made me feel a little bit better. All of the horses I had on my list today went to private buyers. If I had known a little bit more information about that thoroughbred, I would have felt better taking a chance on her, but I try to do the best that I can with the information that I have available at the time. My goal with this channel is to help people gain the confidence they need to go to one of these sales and pick out a horse. Feel free to like and subscribe if that is something that you are interested in so you don't miss any future content. Thanks for watching.